This is Plant-Based Briefing. 81% of meatpacking workers at high injury risk, USDA warns, by Nina Elkadi at sentientmedia.org. I'm Marian Erickson. This is the curated content plant-based podcast where I narrate articles on healthy, compassionate, and sustainable living in about 10 minutes or less every weekday with permission. And I'm thrilled to have permission from Sentient to share their amazing content. So now let's get to today's Plant-Based Briefing. 81% of meatpacking workers at high injury risk, USDA warns, by Nina Elkadi at sentientmedia.org. Two new studies reinforce the fact that slaughterhouse jobs are among the most dangerous. 81% of evaluated poultry workers were found to be at high risk of developing musculoskeletal disorders, a new study from the U.S. Department of Agriculture, or USDA, says. This risk is primarily driven by high piece rates, which is the number of animals or pieces of meat handled by each slaughterhouse worker. Nearly half of pork processing workers evaluated were also at high risk for injury. On January 10th, the department released the results of two studies, one on poultry workers and one on processed pork workers, both linked here, that looked at the impact of line speed and workloads on worker health. The studies showed that piece rate was an important metric in determining workplace safety. While line speed is important, the number of people working on each line combined with line speed provides a more comprehensive risk analysis. Among surveyed poultry workers, 40% reported moderate to severe pain in the last year. Most did not report that pain to supervisors. These USDA studies reaffirm what we've long known, that poultry and swine slaughter poses serious risk to workers regardless of line speed. We must take stronger action to protect these workers and ensure the safety of our food supply chain. United Food and Commercial Workers International Union President Mark Perrone wrote in a press release linked here. According to United Nations FAO estimates, each day, 206 million chickens and 4 million pigs are killed for food, where risks to workers such as amputation and severe falls are common. The study's authors recommend lowering piece rates by increasing staffing, adapting workstations for better ergonomic practices, and improving medical management within workplaces. According to data from the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, poultry and meat companies remain among the most dangerous to work for, in large part due to injuries from keeping up with fast line speeds. Since the first term of Trump's administration, the problem of increasing the line speed and the decrease of the workforce have become some of the most important issues workers have been struggling with every day. Magali Licoli, executive director of Ramos, an Arkansas-based poultry worker advocacy group, wrote to Sentient. The findings of the reports are alarming, but not surprising to us because we've seen how, for the past years, the industry has been putting workers' health and safety at risk for the sake of their own profits, wrote Licoli, who also called on the USDA and the Occupational Safety and Health Administration to pass standards to prevent increasing line speed. During the early days of the COVID-19 pandemic, the Trump administration used federal legislation to declare meatpacking facilities essential, forcing workers to spend hours inside of buildings that would become hotspots for the virus. The Trump administration also granted poultry plants the ability to increase line speed, which some groups, like the Food Integrity Campaign, have been working to reverse through litigation. The studies released last week were a result of these lawsuits and pushback. During the height of the pandemic, as many as 269 meatpacking employees died, and 59,000 workers tested positive for the virus. Industrial animal agriculture operates on a model of systemic exploitation to increase their profit margins at the expense of the well-being of animals, workers, and rural communities. Today's USDA studies on swine and poultry processing workers clearly show the human cost, life-altering injuries, painful work conditions, and high risks tied to relentless production speeds and piece rate pay structures. Jessica Culpepper, executive director of Farm Stand, a legal advocacy group, wrote to Sentient. The incoming administration's history of deregulating big ag and advancing policies that strip protections from vulnerable workers will only deepen these injustices. You just listened to 81% of meatpacking workers at high injury risk, USDA warns, by Nina Elkadi at sentientmedia.org, and I'm your host, Marian Erickson. And do take note that many media outlets, like Sentient, do amazing work for the animals, and they do use language that will be more acceptable to mainstream readers or listeners, and I'm narrating the articles as they're written. But when I do choose to speak with people, I have the privilege to use whatever language I want that doesn't kind of sugarcoat things. So instead of meat processing plants, I say slaughterhouse. I don't talk about poultry or pork. I talk about chickens and pigs, just to help people make the connection that these are real live beings, live animals, not just some piece of packaged stuff in a grocery store. If you're interested in learning more about that, check out episode 665, Chicken or Broiler, Cow or Steer, Owner or Guardian, and I'll put a link to that in the show notes. And I've done a ton of other episodes about slaughterhouse workers, farm workers, and the challenges they face. So just search wherever you listen for the term slaughterhouse, workers, farmer, and those will come up. So please share this episode with anyone who might benefit, and thanks for listening.